Box here. So end of the year, last show. As you can see, we've got some great guests lined up today. We'll just skip past Andy quickly. So we've got Andy on the show. Good evening, Andy.
Yeah, all right, mate.
We've got the regular Chris as well. Good evening, Chris.
Evening, all.
We've got a last bell virgin, Alex. Hi, Alex.
How's it going?
Good afternoon, where you are, I believe.
Yep, 12 o'clock.
And then we've got the legend stroke Twitter legend stroke Leonard Enemy fan club member. Rick Glazer. Good afternoon, Rick.
Gentlemen, happy New Year and thanks for having me today. We'll have a great show.
Let's do it.
So, review of the year. So the first debate we're going to have, or the first nominations, is Fight of the Year. So we're going to start with you, Mr. Glazer, if that's okay. Happy to take a couple of examples. What are your Fight of the Year for 2021?
It would have to be Wilder. Fury Wilder 3. Because not only because of the action in the ring, the champ was down. Fury was down twice in the fourth round, got up off the deck. There's probably fights out there, and there were probably better, a little more better in the ring. Maybe not much more, but due to the high profile of the fight and what it meant to boxing overall, this is the heavyweight championship of the world. I mean, it was a fantastic fight with sustained action, had a dynamic ending. A face plant by Wilder. Fury on the deck, like I said, twice. A lot of big punches thrown. I just don't see where another fight can compete with all the drama and how big the fight was in terms of what it meant to boxing.
Rick, let me just draw you on one topic. What do you think about Dillian White? Is he priced himself out of that fight with Fury?
I mean, what did he say? He wants starting at 10 million, so a guarantee at 10 plus an upside.
Yeah,
I think he's really priced himself out. I mean, that's, you've been begging for the fight to heavy. The guy's a veteran now. He's had a lot of fights. He's never fought for the world title. He got knocked out by AJ back in the day, before AJ was champ, Anthony Joshua. Then he got knocked out not too long ago. He won the rematch against Plevec, and he got planted. And now he wants $10 million to fight Fury. I mean, the people at Top Rank are still laughing. So, come on. It's ridiculous. Not even close to reality. $5 million and a little bit of an upside, yes. 10 million, you've just priced yourself out of the fight. So it's like saying I don't want to fight Tyson Fury.
Any other contenders for Fight of the Year, Rick, before we move on to Alex?
Well, there were several good fights. There was Jose Ramirez and Josh Taylor. That was an excellent fight that had big implications, but it wasn't the heavyweight championship of the world, and the eventual winner didn't get up off the deck twice. So it was good, but it wasn't as good as this fight. I thought Teofimo Lopez and Gambosa's was a little overrated because, I just don't think Teofimo had it. He didn't have his act together, and that's what you got. And it was a good fight too. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But and Stephen Fulton and Figueroa was good. There was some good fights, but they didn't have the cliche that Fury and Wilder 3 had, and they didn't have Fury getting up off the deck twice.
Yeah.
So,
thank you, Rick.
Those were the clinchers for me: heavyweight championship of the world, and the champ getting knocked down twice in the same round, and then coming back to face plant Wilder. It's big.
Well, Alex, coming over to you. Anything different to add to that, Alex? Any different opinion?
I mean, as a whole, boxing's a business too. You know what I mean? So as a whole, you got to go with the Fury and Wilder 3, right? There was drama. There was a big lead up. The fight didn't disappoint. It was entertaining. As he said, the champ was down. So, I mean, you take all those factors and you kind of mix it in there with a fight that was it was a good fight, an entertaining fight. yeah, you kind of have to go with that in a sense, I guess, because you're looking at everything contextually, everything that's put together into that fight, and the lead up and everything, the backstories. This is the trilogy. I mean, so all of those things kind of come into it, and then the guys made an entertaining fight. So you kind of, to me, that's kind of a no-brainer in a sense. I enjoyed the Estrada and Chocolatito fight. That was a back and forth fight. I think that should be up there. Is probably fight of the year. I mean, those guys pretty much, took a breath and went back at it. And I think some of that style of fighting is a little underappreciated, just because there is foot placement, there's angles, the way that they're throwing body shots, the way that they're doing that. Yeah, they're standing in front of each other, but there's a lot of really subtle things that a lot of boxing fans may not kind of realize or appreciate. And that's fighting. They're leaning to the side to kind of offset the other with the body shot, different things like that. So I enjoyed that fight quite a bit. As a whole, it has to be though the Fury and Wilder fight.
Brilliant. Thank you, Alex. Thank you. Chris, we'll come to you next. Chris?
Yeah, no, I think we're all going to be in agreement what the fight
so
of the year was. I think it's going to be very difficult to top that because, as Rick says, it's the WBC Heavyweight Championship of the world, so you can't beat it. But, one of the things which really stood out this year was probably the development of women's boxing. And I think on the night before Wilder and Fury, I think Hamadouche fought Michaela Mayer. And that was probably the best women's fight that I've ever seen. So we take stock and just say what was the best fight we've seen in the year. It's Fury Wilder 3 without question. But these two ladies went at it for 10 rounds. Super featherweight division, a division that we've got an interest in the UK, given the fact that we had Terry Harper for a while, who was world champion. But I thought Mayer and Hamadouche were just absolutely fantastic. Both undefeated going into it. And I thought Michaela Mayer as a US Olympian really grew in that fight, and she changed during the fight. She started to throw uppercuts, she started to close her distance. Hamadouche is like a little pocket rocket and just bundles into you and just continually, closes down distance, doesn't give you a breath. And Mayer actually made her breathe. Mayer actually made her step around the ring and exhausted Hamadouche. So for me, that was an actual fantastic fight to see this year. One that Rick mentioned as well for me is probably one which I really enjoyed was Brandon Figueroa and Stephen Fulton, because I've kind of followed the backstories of these two kids. I think in the US, I don't know how big Figueroa is, but over in the UK, he's pretty much no one knows him. The hardcore fan will know his brother. Because his brother fought one of our guys, a guy called Ricky Burns, Omar Figueroa. But Brandon Figueroa has kind of worked away on PBC undercards, and he's never really made it to the top. But in 2021, I thought he had a breakout year because he fought Lewis Neary, destroyed him with a body shot that was absolutely quality in the 7th round, and then set up this domestic showdown really with Stephen Fulton, who went into the fight himself with hand trouble. So a couple of years ago, Stephen Fulton was sparring Carl Frampton and ended up crying after the sparring session because his hands were in such a mess. So the fact that he's managed to turn his career around and actually now become a double world champion, I think big massive shout out to them. I actually thought it was a draw. I think there was two judges, 116, 112, and 114, 114. But for me, it was a draw. I'd love to see it again. And just picking up on Alex as well, Chocolatito and Estrada, I think they've now signed again to meet potentially in May. So, that would be a fantastic fight, because everybody thought Chocolatito was on the slide, but to put in a performance like that, it's up there in the top 3, I think, for the fights of the year.
Thank you. Andy, anything you want to add to that?
No, pretty much the same, mate. I'd written down Estrada, Chocolatito. The lighter weights in these sort of situations often get overlooked. It's a lot more technical. As Alex has already said, it's all about feet position, shot angles. And the one thing that Alex didn't mention there was there was over 2,000 shots thrown in that fight. 2,500, I think. I think it's a record.
Yeah, it's a record.
And they were going at it. They were going out to the very end of the very last round. The fitness of the two fighters. apart from the quality of the two fighters, was outstanding. But exactly the same as Rick, you can't overlook the fact, because it wasn't just about the epic stature of the fight, Fury Wilder. It was also the drama of what happened in the fight. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't looking forward to it. I didn't think it was needed. You know, Fury did a number on Wilder in the second fight. I didn't think the third fight was required. I thought Fury was going to finish the job sooner than he did in the second fight, because I thought he broke Wilder's heart. But it just goes to show the character of Wilder. He's stepped up in my estimations as a fighter. It's not just talk with Wilder. I don't know what else he's got left after that fight, but
yeah,
you got to give him credit for his cojones for that fight.
I'll tell you what I like about Fury, the Kronk style that he's adopting, where he's seek and destroy now, isn't it? He's sitting down on his punches, he's looking to go out there and knock people out. Simple.
Yes. But I think he's probably just a little bit too heavy, you know, and I think that one of the things he has done over the last couple of fights, with certainly Sugar Hill, he's just probably packed on that little bit more poundage. Now, we know where it is, you know, it's sitting around his waist, it's sitting around his back, you know, but it is having an effect when he's fighting. But, you know, I think that fight took a hell of a lot out of Fury, but it took probably more out of Wilder. You know, and they're talking now, you know, Eddie Hearn talked this morning, didn't he, about Wilder and Derek Chisora. Well, who needs that fight? Come on. Like, for me, I'd like to see Wilder say, do you know what? I'll maybe come back in a year or so, take a proper break, take a proper rest, because that was a fight which could do a hell of a lot of damage to your body and your mind.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next topic then. I'm going to start with you, Alex, on this one. Mm-hmm. The next one is knockout of the year. So, Alex, take it away.
Knockout of the year. Well,
don't tell me you've not done your homework, Alex. Come on.
No. It's Mean Machine. What's his name? Not Mean Machine. Rosado. The Rosado knockout was
brilliant.
That was pretty brutal. And if you look at the fight, I mean, it looked like at that point he was kind of being overwhelmed.
Yeah.
He was getting pressed. He was getting pushed back. He was getting hit. And to come and he had been, I don't know if you guys saw it, but he had been kind of throwing that right hand, that overhand, that right hand. He had missed the mark. And it looked like he was kind of trying to catch him coming in, because he had thrown it a few times. But the Rosado knockout to me was, and at the time of the fight, because it looked like that fight wasn't going to go the distance. I mean, he was getting pushed. Well, I mean, you can never, I mean, not to do disrespect towards Rosado, it's tough. You know, the guy's, he's in your face. He comes to fight all the time. He's not a walk in the park. You better be ready when you fight him. But he was at that point kind of getting pushed a little bit. And I just thought that overhand right hand was just perfect. He kind of came in, walked right into it. And it was, that's probably the one for me.
I think that's an interesting fight, that one, because the guy who was fighting, Mikuzliev, I think it was, or Mikuliev, like he was a silver medalist in the Olympics. You know, he was sitting all going into it, and Eddie Hearn really threw Rosado in to get beaten up, didn't he? You know, This guy was going to be a rising star. No, and all of a sudden it was going that way. Rosado goes down, you know, in the first round, I think it was, and then comes back and takes him out in the third round. And I think what he did there was he just showed he has massive balls, you know, and he actually just, you know, landed a shot which his record probably doesn't suggest he's got one punch power. And we've seen him in the UK against Martin Murray, if you remember, lads, you know, and at that point he was almost just an opponent. You know, and obviously since these Triple G days as well, he fought Triple G, didn't he? He's been sliding down the scale a little bit. Yeah, he's managed to pick up a fight with Danny Jacobs and whatever since. But, you know, no one really thought he had that performance in him. So to do it was a fantastic performance, really.
Okay. Go on, Alex.
No, I was going to say, I think Rosado is kind of looked at now as a kind of a stepping stone in the sense, like, you know, let's if you're ready to go to the next level, you got to kind of he's a gatekeeper to get to the next level, because he's going to push you, he's going to fight you, and he's going to bring it every time he gets in the ring. So, and you know, to Chris's point, yeah, he was in that ring to get beat up. I mean, that's just the long and the short of it, you know. And for him to turn that tide, it was great.
Mr. Glazer, over to you. So, who gets your knockout of the year?
Just to clarify something, Eddie Hearn had nothing to do with that fight. That was a Golden Boy fight, and right, the guy who got knocked out, who I can't pronounce his name, he was with Golden Boy, and Rosado was a free agent. Just to give you, so Eddie had nothing to do with it. There's something we can't blame Eddie for.
I think we get mixed up in the UK here, I think, a little bit, Rick, because of when the zone was launched over here. Eddie was the face of it, almost. And sometimes it's difficult in the UK, and you've almost got to take that step back and remember, he's only Matchroom, he's not the zone. So apologies for saying it to the Hearn. But
no, I was just clarifying it. I wasn't meaning to contradict anybody. I was just clarifying that. The knockout of the year for me was Tyson Fury knocking out Wilder. And the reason for that is the heavyweight championship of the world was a face plant. And because of the fact that in the first fight, Wilder did so much complaining about and fired Mark Breland. And this was like the coup de grace. Like, let me do this for Mark. Don't forget, people forget this. In the beginning of Mark's career, he was a cronk fighter.
He was.
And Hill and Sugar Hill and him have always been very friendly over the years. And this was like, I'm going to pay this bastard back. And for those reasons, that the fight, it had a clear ending in the second fight, but Wilder acted like it wasn't. They shouldn't have stopped it, and his corner shouldn't have stopped it, and there was some shenanigans going on. It was like the coup de grace, the perfect ending, face plant, good night, Irene. And, all the dynamics, the dramatic part of everything just says that to me was the. I think the prior fight where Rosado knocked out Russian, Kyrgyzstanian, whatever he is, Eastern European. That was a great knockout, but there was no drama leading up to it. It was just a knockout and it happened. There was no backstory to the knockout. And this had all the drama. The heavyweight champion. This had every earmark on it. Cold, a face plant, one punch, boom, boom. And he was out before he hit the canvas, and then the double hit on the canvas. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. I see that in my dreams, that knockout. Him laying on the canvas like this. It's beautiful. You know what I mean? It's like looking at some voluptuous woman, 36, double D.
Rick, let me stop you. Here we go again.
Fantastic.
Calm it down. We know what's coming next, a P word.
So, anyways, I think that was it for me, to be honest with you. I think everything else was fun, interesting, but it didn't wrap up to that.
Yeah, brilliant. Cheers, Rick. Andy, we'll come to you next. Any different views?
I've got a few. Kiko Martinez, Kid Galahad. Galahad was walking the fight. Yeah. Martinez is about 900 years old and didn't look like he was anywhere near the fight, but he's well known for having a heavy hand. And Galahad was spark cold. So I'm a little bit different to Rick. I don't like to go against Rick because Rick's the boxing Yoda, isn't he? But I go a little bit different to Rick because when I think of knockout of the year, I think of one punch knockout. So for me, Kiko Martinez, Galahad has to be there. Callum Smith against Lenin Castillo, one punch knockout.
Yeah,
that was quite scary initially.
Frightening.
And then you've got I don't know if I'm not allowed to mention this fighter because he's a bit controversial. Oscar Valdez.
Yeah.
Against Bertrand.
Yeah, I've got that.
That's a crazy knockout. But I get where Rick's coming from because there's a lot of irony there. Mark Breland was destroyed by the Wilder camp after that first fight. Disgraceful, really. He needs a lot more respect for not only for being a trainer, but for what he did as a fighter in the game as well.
It was revenge.
Absolutely.
And revenge is the best hold.
I tell you what, Rick, there was no one else in Wilder's camp that dare throw the towel in at that point in the fight.
No.
No.
But some of the stuff that was said about Mark Breland after that fight, you know, like they were almost insinuating he drugged his water. He was complicit in
That's
various
right, yeah.
other things, and you know, it's unbelievable. You know, we know Mark Breland well here in the UK. He fought our guy Lloyd Hunnigan. You know, so he's been a career, as you say, that I've kind of followed over the years. You know, and it was almost a feel-good story because you know that Mark Breland had went down on his luck a little bit after he had stopped boxing and then got back in with Wilder, and you know, it did have that nice feel-good story. Then all of a sudden, he's the scapegoat again, and I just think what Wilder did, he lost a lot of respect for me after the second fight, you know. But again, he's built it back up in terms of his performance. But again, he's never really came out and said, you know, well done, Fury, you know, we'll shake hands.
Well, he has come out on a
understandable.
He has come out on a podcast and said it, hasn't he?
It was a bit veiled and a bit muted when he did say it. It was about 3 weeks after the fight, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think he's all you're going to get, though.
Yeah, that's good enough for him.
So, Andy, thanks for that. Chris, do you want to finish your segment off? You got any other views?
Not necessarily any other views. I posted this morning a little video on Twitter of the Valdez knockout. I thought, you know, two Mexicans going against it. You know, we talk about 2021. We're always going to remember closed-door fights. You know, that's a fight I think everybody would have wished they had been at. You know, Berchelt and Valdez, you know, two of them going in, 130-0, 38-0, another one. It was just a superb knockout. And I think the way, you know, as you say, can we talk about Valdez? You know, we all know the kind of background behind him. But I think the way that he kind of made Berchelt chase after him in that 10th round, and he just waited and landed with a crunching left hand. That left hook was beautiful for me, you know, and that was again another face plant onto the floor. So, you know, for me, that was a knockout of the year. And again, I know you guys might not see too much of him over in the US, but one of Carol's favourite fighters is a guy called Conor Benn, and he knocked out Chris Algieri.
Never heard.
Yeah, I saw that.
He knocked out him with a tremendous punch in the 4th round. But taking that aside, that was a decent knockout as well, actually, to be fair. The Conor Benn one, it landed and landed well. But Berchelt and Valdez for me.
Brilliant. Okay, guys, moving on to the next topic then. So we've had fight of the year, we've had knockout of the year, now we're going for fighter of the year. So, Andy, I'm coming for you first on this one.
Are we picking one from the US and one from the UK, or just...
Do what you want.
Okay, so without a shadow of a doubt, the fighter of the year is Canelo. You know, he's the first and only fighter to clear up the super middleweight division. He's not been scared to go in against anybody. He's took on the very, very best. So as a whole, fighter of the year, Canelo. If I was to pick a UK fighter of the year, without a shadow of a doubt, it's got to be Josh Taylor. Because he's the first and still only undisputed four-belt undisputed champion from the UK. And that's been very overlooked. I know sports personality of the year don't mean anything, but he didn't even get a vote. For you, for the guys across the pond, sports personality of the year is a bit of a big deal to certain sports in the UK. It's hosted on the biggest terrestrial TV channel we have, the BBC. And you generally get a fairly decent balance, but Josh Taylor didn't even get a vote, which is disgraceful. Female fighter of the year, I've gone for Chantel Cameron from the UK. Because apart from being outstanding, shot perfection is perfect. She will become undisputed next year. And then from the US, I've gone Jessica McCaskill.
Yep. Is that the end of your suggestions, Andy?
It is.
Thank you. So move on to Chris then. Chris, over to you.
For me, the worldwide fighter of the year is Canelo. You know, I don't think anybody can really overlook what he did this year. You know, and his body of work over the last since he got beat by Mayweather has just been phenomenal. You know, but when you look at Caleb Plant, Billy Joe Saunders, you know, those two performances stick out. You know, and they're just absolutely tremendous. What he did to Billy Joe Saunders, he just nullified him. And I heard something which I hadn't heard recently, heard before. Billy Joe Saunders said that Canelo let him make mistakes. And he kept playing to Billy Joe Saunders. So Billy Joe Saunders, say, would maybe throw a left to the body and Canelo would let it land or whatever. Or he would maybe try and throw an uppercut and Canelo would let it land. And he just kept letting Billy Joe Saunders thinking he was in the fight. Then when he wanted to, Billy Joe Saunders says he just stopped it. And then he just started putting the pressure on. And that's when Billy Joe Saunders realised there's pretty much nothing I can do here. You know, Canelo's all about inches and movement and head movement. He's just gorgeous to watch, you know. And he's really came on as a fighter, you know, over the last 8-10 years. You know, so for me, he is going to be the worldwide fighter of the year. British fighter of the year for me, same as Andy. There's probably a performance of the year that I would shout out, but Josh Taylor, man from Edinburgh, my hometown, so he is, you know, phenomenal what he's done there in a short space of time. But one of the other guys who's got to be up there, and the American lads might not have seen it, but we've got a wee guy over here called Maxie Hughes, who put on a tremendous performance against a guy called Straffon on Josh Warrington's undercard when he fought Lara for the second time. He won a minor belt, he won an IBO title, but the performance he put on that night was second to none, you know, and he held his concentration for 12 rounds, you know, and that for me is why, you know, he's up there in terms of British Fighter of the Year, just behind Josh Warrington. He'll never be a big name, he'll never be a guy that gets a mega purse, although they're talking about him fighting potentially Devin Haney. But that performance was enough to make him, you know, stand out for me as a British Fighter of the Year. Female British Fighter of the Year, you know, it's a tough one really for that one. But, you know, I think you can't look past what Chantel Cameron actually did this year. You know, she went out to Vegas at the tail end of last year as well, won a fight over there, doubled up and got the Ring Magazine belt, and, you know, as well won another title. So, you know, I think she's done well. And Michaela Meyer, for me, is probably the one that stands out in the world scene at the moment, given her performance against Hamadouche. Although I think if we were having the same conversation next year, it's going to be Amanda Serrano.
Cheers, Chris. Rick, coming to you next.
Canelo's a no-brainer.
Yep.
Josh Taylor's a no-brainer, and I don't really talk about women's boxing. I have no expertise in it whatsoever, so I'd rather just refrain from that.
Fair enough.
But I think both becoming unified, undefeated. Canelo's not undefeated, but both becoming unified champions was the pinnacle of our sport. They both beat undefeated fighters to get there, and it's tough to argue with success. So and results, great results. So Canelo and Josh Taylor is a no-brainer, I think.
Cheers, Rick.
What's the profile of Canelo in America?
Massive.
What's that again?
What's the profile of Canelo in America? Is he a household name as yet?
Yeah.
Well, he is amongst boxing fans and amongst Hispanics. I would say the average white person that's not a boxing fan is a football fan. Is maybe heard of him, but has never watched him.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cheers, Rick. Alex, coming to you.
I mean, I agree with everybody as far as Canelo. I think in this day and age where it takes, you know, champions to fight, you know, once a year, you know, maybe twice a year, he cleaned out a division, you know, in roughly a year. His body of work speaking for itself, you know. Yildirim, when he fought him, everybody gave him flack about that, but that was kind of a stay busy fight, if you will. I mean, no disrespect to Yildirim, but that was like, hey, let me stay sharp, let me stay in it type thing. I think Billy Joe Saunders fight, I think that's kind of an overlooked fight. What Chris was saying, it was almost like he was playing with his food before he ate it, you know, type thing. And I think that performance is overlooked a little bit, just because, you know, again, casual fans look at it and like, hey, Billy Joe is kind of, you know, hey, he's doing okay, he's doing this, he's doing that. Even Plant, you know, I think people confuse, like, Plant did better than we anticipated that he would do. I think, you know, a lot of people thought that it was going to end quicker, and I think you're confusing how Plant did versus actually giving Canelo, like, hey, he was really winning the fight. You know, Plant was awesome. He was never winning the fight. He was never. It was never that. He just did better than we anticipated. But I think the fashion of how Canelo is kind of breaking people down and getting rid of them, on top of winning a unified title, you know, a division, unifying a division. I mean, that's amazing to me. So, and then in the time frame. So yeah, Canelo easy. Taylor, obviously, as far as UK goes, unifying a division. And Josh Taylor, I've got to see him fight a few times. I'm not going to say that I'm this, I have watched him fight. I like his style. He's big. He's going to move up to 147, it seems like, here pretty shortly. But as far as that goes, yeah, Josh Taylor unifying a 140-pound division is great. As far as women, I'm in agreement with my man over here. I watch women's boxing, but I don't watch it. So I know Amanda Serrano, Mayer, different household, different names that are a little bit on the upper echelon of women's boxing, but I don't really want to comment too much on something that I'm not versed in.
Fair enough, Alex. Thank you very much. So the next topic is quite subjective. So we've just titled it Event of the Year. Now you can use whatever criteria you want to come up with your Event of the Year, whether it's revenue, whether it's gate attendance, whether it's a card top to bottom, however you want to play it. So in true round robin fashion, it's Chris first on this one.
We're going to talk about it all night. Event of the year was the presser for Wilder and Fury, where basically Deontay Wilder said nothing, and the female in America, is it Christine Poncher, who was trying to get something from Wilder, got absolutely nothing from him. I think he got one word out of him, but I think the way that Fury handled it was fantastic, because Fury was like, well, if you're going to say nothing, I'll just take center stage and I'll just talk and talk and talk and talk. And that's what Fury does. And it gets under Wilder's skin, and that's the whole point. We were all looking for weaknesses there. Wilder saying nothing, sitting with headphones on, not even looking at him, refusing to speak. We were all saying, is that a weakness in Wilder? I think it was actually the thing that was burning his, a little chip on his shoulder. It was burning away at him and making him hate Fury and making him train with Malik Scott. So, for me, that event of the year actually got my interest in the fight. Andy made a great point. Were we interested in the fight? He got smashed around for 7 rounds before. No one was interested in the fight. But the minute that presser was finished, I was interested in the fight because you could start to try and piece it together again. So for me, the first presser was the event of the year.
Okay, thank you. I didn't see that one coming. Thanks, Chris. I'll go to Andy next.
I've actually gone for Canelo Billy Joe Saunders at fight evening. AT&T Stadium, borders of Mexico. Very hostile crowd towards Billy Joe Saunders. It was on Mexican holiday weekend, I believe.
Yep.
As well. It had so much drama, fantastic build-up, and a very, very, very well set-up event. Billy Joe Saunders spending hours on that platform. Oh, it seemed like hours on that platform, but before he decided to walk to the ring, just added drama. Canelo's entrance was outstanding.
What about the hotel shenanigans as well?
Well, there's a lot you can add in there. It's what you believe from the media, isn't it? It's what you believe. Do you believe Billy Joe Saunders? Do you believe Canelo? Do you believe what Eddie Hearn was saying? He was trying to be a bit of a go-between. I'm not taking that away from what Canelo did. He's gonna take advantages where he can. Every champion's done that over the years. But as an event, for me, that's the top of the tree.
Okay, thank you very much. Alex, your next fella.
Probably I would agree. I think just because I'm from over here on this side, I'm from the Southwest in Arizona, the Canelo, Billy Joe Saunders event itself, the entrance of even just the entrance as far as having Pepe Aguilar and having his family in there, that's a big deal. Okay, and 80,000 people there is a big deal.
Yeah.
And I give credit to Billy Joe too, because he did look relaxed. Coming in, he was kind of taking his time. He was strutting. He had his music going. He was taking his time into the ring, walking into the ring, and that was a long, long walk. I've been in that stadium. That's a big, big stadium. So knowing how big that stadium is, and having that many people there in a hostile environment, and to have him still kind of doing his thing, and then the pride of Canelo coming in and with his entrance and the performance of the Borderline concert, walking in, being Mexican American, it gave all of our family, everybody, like goosebumps, like, wow, that this is a moment. This is a huge moment. I thought that they would do that for Plant, do something along that caliber. I was kind of hoping it because it deserved it. That's a unified title. But as far as the event itself, I think Canelo and Billy Joe.
Okay, cheers, Alex. Last but not least, Mr. Glazer.
No brainer. Basically sold out. AT&T Stadium with a Dallas Cowboys fight. The degree of the fight, unification fight, undefeated champion, Mexican versus a guy from the UK. I mean, it had all the earmarks. Everybody's in agreement. I mean, nothing else compared to it all year.
I'll tell you one that I think runs it close, and that's AJ versus Usyk at Spurs Stadium. Similar sort of attendance, a lot of belts on the line. We didn't know what Usyk had. So I think that one runs it very close, especially for maybe those guys in the UK.
I had that down as well, Carl, as my second choice. But I disagree with you. We did know what Usyk had, and I had it pinpointed as Usyk winning. So.
Anyone you got all year, moving on quickly.
I think that one was a massive one, though, for us in the UK, because the lockdown here, just seemed to rumble on, didn't it? And that was the kind of signal of British boxing's back again. We can still sell out stadiums, and British boxing's buzzing at the moment, So, for us to get that back on, it was a huge event. It was also quite a revealing event as well, because, like, looking at the walk-in, it didn't look like AJ was focused, but that's for another day.
I'm just thinking of the spectacle as well, and you had Callum Smith on the undercard as well, and the whole spectacle of it being in a new stadium. I just thought it was up. I just thought it was up there, to be honest.
Yeah, good show.
Let me clarify something. I misspoke a little bit. I've been in a football stadium. I meant to say, not the Cowboys particularly, but I know what it's like to be in a packed football stadium, 70,000 people, and and that's 70,000 in the seats. I think, then you put the ring there and you got floor, everything else. I mean, to be in a football stadium, you guys have, football stadium, soccer football stadiums. It's massive. So
the Dallas Cowboy Stadium is something that we know quite well in the UK. We got to see it in Hard Knocks this year, so it's quite an amazing stadium.
Yeah.
Okay. Mr. Glazer, you're next on this one. You're first up. So, Trainer of the Year, both a UK nomination and a worldwide nomination.
I would say Eddie Reynoso over here, and I don't know. Josh Taylor. Ben Davidson would probably would have to be in that running, I would think. Josh Taylor, and he works with Devin Haney and stuff like that. I think it's Ben Davidson over there, and I think it's Eddie Reynoso over here. I just don't see any competition for those two for this year. I'm not saying they're the best trainers. They just had the best results this year.
Good shot, Rick. Good shot. Alex, moving to you next.
Same thing. I mean, it's pretty simple. Look at their stables. Look what they're, what's going on, within their stables and their results and everything else. I mean, it's pretty much straight. To me, anyways, it's pretty straightforward. Reynoso and Davidson.
Cheers, Alex. Okay, Andy, moving to you next.
Unfortunately, Carl, I'm going to be boring and say exactly the same. They're what I've got written down. I have a bit of an asterisk against Eddie Reynoso, if I'm honest. I can't. There's that niggling thing in my head about testing and bits and bobs. It's all slightly controversial. It's all a bit up in the air. You had the situation with Canelo a few years back. You had the situation with Valdez earlier on in the year. Ryan Garcia disappeared for 6 months of the year. Why was that? I hate to say it because they've built such an empire there. It seems that anything that comes out of that camp is gold. But there's always that niggling doubt, which worries me. But he has to be the worldwide trainer just because of what he's won. I agree with Rick. There's probably better trainers. But for what he's won, he's got to take Trainer of the Year. And again, I agree with Rick and Davison for the UK. Josh Taylor was a shining diamond before Ben Davison got hold of him, but he still took him to undisputed. The real deal there for me is the situation with Lee Wood, and the fact that in February 2020, Lee lost the European title fight with Jazza Dickens, and it looked like Lee's career was done. Where did he have to go after that? All of a sudden, he goes to Ben Davison. Ben takes him on the pads, realizes how much power he's got in the hands, and all of a sudden, it's a game changer. He changes Lee's style slightly, and has him sat on his shots a bit more.
Andy, let me just interject because I don't know if you've seen the comments in the side, but Niall O'Connor is calling Ben Davison Butcherside Ben.
That's disgraceful, Niall. But we'll have a conversation with you next week.
A guy in the chat, Rick. A guy who's typing away in the chat.
The thing is, Rick. We've got just to give you a bit of context, Rick. Lee Wood's got a fight against Conlon Mickey Conlon coming up. And obviously there's a bit of banter going on. I don't know if you've seen it on Twitter between myself, Carl, and the Irish contingent over that fight. And I think Niall's perhaps a Conlon fan, which is fine.
Aren't they all with MTK?
Yes.
Yeah.
They are.
Okay.
Yeah. So Niall's agreed to come on next week, by the way, and
great stuff. No, that's good. That's good because it gives good debate. So just back to what I was saying though. So Lee would look like he was down and out. Ben Davison takes him in. They do a few sessions and he realises just what power Lee's got, which nobody has used with Lee in previous fights. Lee's always been a back foot slick fighter. He's never sat down in his shots. All of a sudden, Ben Davison takes him on. Early February this year, he wins the British title, knocking out Reece Mould. And then in July, he gets a bit of what some people might call a shock world title shot. The Irish contingent will tell you that he was meant to be cannon fodder for Zucan. But quite clearly, Ben and Lee sorted out a game plan for that fight. And Lee executed it to the letter. And he comes away with a knockout win over a fighter that a lot of that division were avoiding, by the way. So, yeah, I completely agree. Ben Davison is the UK Trainer of the Year.
Cheers, Andy. So, Chris, coming on to you.
Yeah, well, I think Eddie Reynoso's got it all sewn up, really, hasn't he, for the worldwide Trainer of the Year. What he's done with Canelo, we all know. UK body work, you've got to go with Ben Davison, as we say. But there's probably a couple of others that we can give a shout out to. Not necessarily that Ben Davison's run away with it, clear, but again, someone that I'm a big fan of, Andy Lee. I like what he's done with Joseph Parker. Even though Andy is technically Irish now, he was born in London, so we'll class him as a UK trainer. And I still like what Shane McGuigan's done this year. I think he's changed round Robbie Davis Jr. quite well, and again he's working on Lawrence Akoli. But those guys aren't obviously at a level of what Ben Davison's done with Josh Taylor and Lee Wood. So these two guys, clear winners. But we've got some great trainers in the UK, and I'd like to see them all get their chance and, get a little bit of recognition. If Josh Warrington hadn't been absolutely splattered by Lara, we could have given a shout out to Sean O'Hagan for what he actually did with Maxie Hughes. You know, but certainly for me, it's going to be Ben Davidson and Eddie Reynoso.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, last topic then, guys. So we've moved on to the biggest prospect for 2022. So we'll start with Alex on this one. Alex, what are your thoughts on who's going to break out in 2022?
As far as American or just in general?
Just anybody.
Alex.
I'm thinking. Hello.
Yeah,
Eric,
with
still here?
Oh,
Nope, lost him.
let's
Okay.
go to Rick.
Yeah, Rick.